Cheung Tze-keung. He hijacked a truck full of Rolex watches, robbed an armored van of $170 million in cash, and even kidnapped Victor Lee, the eldest son of Tycoon Lee Ka-shing, demanding a ransom of $2 billion. In the end, he walked away with more than $1 billion, a world record ransom recognized by the Guinness Book. Nicknamed Big Spender, Cheung was one of Hong Kong's 3 notorious crime kings, and the only one who called himself a criminal mastermind. His life was full of legend, but his downfall was just as dramatic. Tonight, we revisit the rise and fall of this so-called kingpin, from a petty street hustler to shocking the entire city, and finally, to his fatal end. Cheung Tze-keung was born in 1955 in China. When he was 4 years old, he followed his parents as they sneaked into Hong Kong, where the family settled. Life for the Cheung family was simple. His father opened a herbal tea shop right across from the Yau Na Te police station. On the surface, it sold tea, but in fact, it also secretly took illegal gambling bets to help support the family. As a child, Cheung spent every day playing near the shop. Right in front of him was the police station, and he often saw criminals going in and out. But these scenes did not make him stay away from crime. Instead, because he was always hanging around places like the Yau Na Te Fruit Market and Temple Street, areas full of shady characters, he came into contact with all kinds of people, and his values slowly twisted. At that time in Hong Kong, corruption inside the police force was very serious. Taking protection money was almost an open secret. Even his father's tea shop had to pay the police in order to operate safely. Growing up in such an environment, Cheung was influenced little by little and came to believe that breaking the law is nothing unusual. He even thought that if you wanted fast money, you had to take the crooked path. At 12 years old, he was arrested for the first time for stealing. By the age of 16, he already had 15 criminal records, including robbery, conspiracy to rob, theft, and even claiming to be a triad member. He was, from a young age, already living the life of a street thug. His father saw that his son was going further and further down the wrong road and became very worried. So, he arranged for Cheung to work as an apprentice in a tailor shop, hoping he could settle down and live properly. But inside this tailor shop, Cheung met 2 people who would change his life forever. The first was his coworker, Wong Feng-ki. Wong was older, with more street experience and many connections. One time he told Cheung, "If you want to get rich, you have to take the crooked path. But you must plan it perfectly, just like how we make clothes, without a single flaw." This sentence stuck deeply in Cheung's mind, and later became his rule for every crime. The second person was his coworker, Luo Yanfang. Later they started dating, got married, and Luo not only took care of the family, but also became Cheung's most trusted partner, even serving as the key insider in many of his major crimes. Cheung worked hard at the tailor shop, and in order to serve foreign customers, he even studied English at night. Because of this effort, he made his first pot of gold, $50,000. But because the money came too quickly, he started to think, if he wanted to become truly rich, he had to walk a special path. On February 22nd, 1990, a robbery shocked all of Hong Kong. The target was a shipment of Rolex watches worth $30 million in Hong Kong. That day, a security company was responsible for transporting 40 boxes of watches from Kai Tak cargo terminal. About an hour after departure, the company suddenly lost contact with the guards in the truck. The police immediately grew alarmed because $30 million was an astronomical figure at the time. The police quickly set up roadblocks across major roads in the city. But 2 hours later, the guards themselves called for help. They explained that not long after departure, their vehicle was blocked by another car. Several armed men stormed onto the truck, pointed guns at them, and hijacked both the guards and the vehicle. During the process, the robbers used walkie-talkies to communicate with their lookout and support team, showing that the entire operation had been carefully planned. The robbers then transferred the 40 boxes of watches to another truck. The original armored vehicle was later driven to a temporary housing area in Kowloon Bay and set on fire. When the police arrived, they found no fingerprints at all, which showed the robbers were highly professional. Because the robbers knew the transport schedule and route so clearly, the police suspected there must have been an inside man. Some pointed to Cheung's wife, Luo Yanfeng, who at that time worked for a related watch company and could have leaked the information. However, suspicion was not the same as evidence. In the end, the police had no solid leads, and the case remained unsolved. But the public widely believed the mastermind was Cheung Tze-keung. This was his first time pulling off a multi-million-dollar big job. Yet the heist also exposed a major problem. It was very difficult to sell the stolen goods. Every single watch had a unique serial number, which meant one mistake could easily lead to discovery. To get rid of them, he could only sell to middlemen at a very low price, often only 1/3 of the value. So Hong Kong dollar 30 million worth of goods might only turn into Hong Kong dollar 10 million in cash, and with heavy risk. After the Rolex case, Cheung already understood. Stealing goods made a lot of noise, but cash was more straightforward. So he turned his eyes to the most direct kind of big job, an armored cash transport. To make sure everything was seamless, Cheung arranged for his wife Luo Yanfeng to get a job inside the security company, working on computer data entry. Through this role, they could clearly know all the details of each delivery: time, route, amount of cash, number of guards, and even how many guns the guards were carrying. On board were 4 guards carrying 2 shotguns, and the cargo was about $170 million in cash. On the morning of the job, around 8 a.m., the truck left Kai Tak. Cheung's gang used the same roadblock method as before. Armed with guns, they rushed the truck, held the guards hostage, and drove it to a construction site of the still unfinished Tate's Cairn Tunnel. The gang was well practiced. Within minutes, they moved all the money bags onto another stolen van. Then, just like before, they burned the original armored truck, leaving no fingerprints. To be even safer, Cheung told his men to coat their fingers with strong glue to avoid leaving any prints. The amount of money stolen was record-breaking, the largest robbery in Hong Kong history at the time. The police took it extremely seriously and believed it was very likely connected to the Rolex case because the methods were almost identical. Someone clearly had inside information. The insurance company even offered a $2 million reward for information. During the investigation, the police indeed discovered that Luo Yanfeng was working inside the company, and she had direct access to transport data. Finally, both Cheung and Luo were arrested and charged with conspiracy to rob. After trial, Cheung was sentenced to 18 years in prison. But fate once again took a dramatic turn. Because one guard's testimony had problems, Cheung's lawyers managed to appeal successfully. By 1995, he had only served 3.5 years when he was released, smiling outside the court, raising his hands in a V sign, as if he had won a battle. At that moment, Cheung felt untouchable. Even the law couldn't stop him. And it was exactly this confidence that pushed him to make his next move. Something even crazier, something that shocked the entire city. A kidnapping of Victor Li, son of Hong Kong's richest man, Li Ka-shing. On the evening of May 23, 1996, Victor Li finished work at Cheung Kong Center in Central and got into his car with his driver to return to the family mansion in Deepwater Bay. On the way, a car suddenly cut them off, and several other vehicles boxed them in from behind. Armed men carrying AK-47 rifles jumped out, pointed their weapons at the car, and dragged Victor Li out, transferring him into a truck. The entire operation was fast and clean. It took less than a minute. Victor Li was blindfolded and taken to a hidden village house in the New Territories, where he was held. What shocked people most was not only the target itself, but the fact that Cheung personally went to Li Ka-shing's house to negotiate. There was a rumor that he strapped explosives to his body to threaten Li, but many later clarified that in reality, he only carried a pistol. Even so, the act of boldly walking into the home of Hong Kong's richest man was shocking enough. Cheung demanded $2 billion in ransom. Li Ka-shing did not panic. Instead, he remained unusually calm. He simply said, "I only have $1 billion in cash. If you want it, I can give it to you right now." Cheung agreed without hesitation, and the deal was struck. In the end, Li Ka-shing delivered the ransom in installments, with the total reaching $1 billion. This record-breaking ransom was later listed in the Guinness World Records as the highest ransom ever paid. After receiving the money, Cheung kept his word and released Victor Li unharmed. According to popular stories, Cheung once asked Li Ka-shing, "Your son has been kidnapped. How can you still stay so calm?" Li replied, "Because this time it was my fault. Our family is so well known, but our defenses were too weak. For example, when I go play tennis early in the morning, I drive myself out to the New Territories. Just a few cars could surround me on the road, and I have no protection at all. This incident reminded me that I must review my own security." After the kidnapping, the Li family greatly strengthened their security and became much more low profile. After the successful kidnapping of Victor Li in 1996, Cheung Tze-keung already had an enormous fortune in his hands, but he had no intention of stopping. Instead, he grew even more confident. There were even rumors that he boasted, "I will kidnap all of Hong Kong's top 10 tycoons, one by one." Although no one could confirm he really said it, his next move clearly showed where his eyes were set. Another property giant, the chairman of Sun Hung Kai Properties, Walter Kwok Peng Sheng. On the evening of September 29, 1997, Walter Kwok was driving his own car, preparing to return to his mansion in Deepwater Bay. Just as he reached the gate of his home, several cars suddenly surrounded him. A group of armed men rushed out, pulled him violently from his car, and kidnapped him on the spot. Walter Kwok was taken to a remote village house in the New Territories, where the conditions were extremely harsh. It was said he was forced to stay curled up inside a wooden box all day. Eating, drinking, sleeping, even using the toilet, all had to be done inside the box. He was stripped of his clothes and kept in this state for long hours, suffering both physically and mentally. At first, he refused to cooperate and would not call his family to demand ransom. But after several days of torment, he finally gave in and made the call. As usual, Cheung opened his mouth and demanded $2 billion. The Kwok family, of course, could not agree to such a huge amount. After negotiation, the two sides finally settled on $600 million. Unlike before, this time, Cheung did not personally go to the victim's family home. Instead, Walter's mother sent a car to pick him up and take him to a secret meeting place. Shockingly, Cheung went there alone, without any bodyguards and not even carrying a gun. In the end, an agreement was reached. On October 3, 1997, the Kwok family paid $600 million, and Cheung kept his promise, releasing Walter Kwok. Although Walter Kwok returned home safely without physical injury, the trauma was enormous. It was reported that he later suffered from depression and required more than a year of treatment before recovering. This incident once again shocked Hong Kong. The city's wealthy class felt extreme fear. Many rushed to buy bulletproof cars, hire personal bodyguards, and upgrade their home security systems. A wave of panic spread across the city as no one knew who Cheung might target next. For Cheung, the Walter Kwok case was proof again that he could pull off huge jobs without resistance. From the $30 million Rolex watches, to the $170 million armored van, to the billion-dollar ransom for Victor Lee, and now the $600 million ransom for Walter Kwok. Each case was bigger than the last, and his ambition grew higher and higher. He even described himself as a mountain climber, saying that every crime was like climbing a higher peak, and he would never stop. It was exactly this mindset that drove him to plan his next move. This time, he planned something that could shock the whole world. He began secretly buying huge amounts of weapons and explosives. More than 800 kilograms of industrial explosives, 2,000 detonators, hundreds of meters of fuse, submachine guns, AK-47 rifles, bullets, tear gas, even hand grenades. The amount was terrifying. Some believed his goal was to blow open a prison and use a helicopter to rescue his gang members, including Yip Kai-foon. Although this was never officially confirmed, it was clear that Cheung was planning something on a massive scale. But Cheung's movements in mainland China were already under surveillance. The police there knew he was smuggling weapons, so they kept him under close watch. On January 23, 1998, Cheung and his close partner Mouse, Hu Jishu, stayed in an apartment in Zhuhai. Public security officers surrounded the area, watching closely. Cheung, sensing danger, left that apartment and moved to a villa in a golf resort. The area was highly restricted, and the police had trouble following without revealing themselves. At one point, they even lost track of him. The next day, his car was spotted at a shopping mall in Zhuhai. Police blocked off the mall, but by then, Cheung was already gone. It seemed he had abandoned the car on purpose to confuse them. That night, he stayed at another hotel, preparing to move again. On January 25th, he disguised himself, changed clothes, and took a taxi toward Jiangmen. He likely thought he had escaped surveillance, but as his taxi crossed a bridge, traffic police suddenly stopped the car. Cheung thought it was just a routine check, but in the next moment, dozens of armed plainclothes officers rushed out, surrounded the car, and pointed their guns at him. Even at the moment of arrest, Cheung kept his arrogance. He complained the officers were too rough and told them to be gentle. When they handcuffed him behind his back, he even demanded, "No, cuff me in the front." Of course, the police ignored him. Cheung's arrest made headlines across Asia. The rich in Hong Kong finally felt relief, knowing the city's most dangerous kidnapper was gone. But Cheung and his wife Lu Yanfang were not too worried at first. They believed most of his crimes happened in Hong Kong, and mainland courts should not have the right to judge him. If he were extradited back to Hong Kong, the worst he might face was life in prison. Hong Kong had no death penalty. And since both Li Ka-shing and Walter Kwok had never officially reported their kidnappings, evidence would be weak. He might even walk free again. Lu Yanfang hired lawyers and sent letters asking for extradition, but both the Hong Kong and mainland governments refused. Officials explained that most of Cheung's crimes were planned inside China, so he would be tried there. In late 1998, Cheung was tried in Guangzhou. He faced charges of illegal trading of explosives, smuggling firearms, kidnapping, and organized crime. All charges were proven, and the court sentenced him to death. His political rights were stripped for life, and his assets in China, worth 660 million yuan, were confiscated. On December 5, 1998, Cheung Tze-keung was executed by firing squad in Guangzhou, ending his short 42-year life. He became the only one among Hong Kong's 3 great crime kings to be sentenced to death and actually executed. Cheung always boasted that in all his big cases, the Rolex robbery, the armored van heist, the kidnappings of Victor Li and Walter Kwok, he never fired a shot and never killed anyone. He claimed this made him a gentleman bandit, believing he was only taking from the rich or from insurance companies. But the truth is simple. Crime is still crime. No matter how he tried to justify it, the end result was the same. From a street kid to Hong Kong's most notorious gangster, Cheung Tze-keung spent his whole life proving one thing. Fast money comes fast, but it also disappears fast. And in the end, it only bought him a tragic death.